Well, it seems that we have reached the end of perhaps the last truly successful heroic franchise from Sony, Venom. Surprisingly, Venom has become the only bright spot in this gallery of masterpieces from Sony. And yes, I'm talking about the great and terrible Morbius, which ranked in a morbidly large amount of dollars and allowed us, internet dwellers, to scam Hollywood bosses with memes, making them lose money along with this Madame Web. Oh god. These films have long been recognized as great cinematic garbage, because there is no other description for them. But how did Venom manage to rise above all of this? Although the franchise faced tough times, the third installment, Venom: The Last Dance, not only maintained the standard, but can be said to have soared above all other parts. It doesn't just hint at another villain, it introduces a character on the level of Thanos, if not higher, who promises to be a real sensation. Meet Knull, the terrifying and charismatic antagonist we all have been waiting for. Oh my god, Marvel is in complete shambles. I won't say that exactly because they lack a central defining villain after Thanos, but here comes Knull. However, due to copyright issues, he is not in Marvel. Oh my god damn it! If you love superheroes, and you've definitely noticed this trend on YouTube, breaking down literally every frame with Knull and speculating whether he will appear in Marvel or not, whether he will break out of the Sony cinematic universe and attack Spider-Man played by Tom Holland. What will happen or not happen, we don't know. Whether Sony and Marvel will come to an agreement, we don't know, and thus 20 consecutive videos from different channels. I bet as soon as he fully appears on screens, not just in those teasers where he's sitting on the toilet, TikTok and fan reviews and fan edits will dissect him. A bunch of fans will make music clips with him because look, he's thin, creepy, with those horrifying black eyes and scary teeth, just what fans of creepypasta and similar edits love. And for those who appreciate the finer details, I'll even say he reminds me of another king of the dead, Arthas from Warcraft, and the epicness that he embodies. Oh, I will talk about that separately because, well, it turns out that Venom, with his paradoxical success and existence, is literally starting to choke Marvel, and Marvel and Disney will have to do something about it because the problem is indeed significant. Why is Venom so cool, regardless of the incarnation, be it in movies or the animated series I love? Today we'll figure this out. All I ask from you is likes and comments, especially comments. Let's show me some engagement. I want to know who is watching me. As for Venom in general, without any major spoilers, Sony's entire idea of creating the Venom movie is quite absurd, but at the same time painfully tenacious. Well, you take a character whose origin is closely tied to Spider-Man and turn him into an anti-hero who has no connection to Spider-Man. Then you throw in these strange interactions in the post-credit scenes of the sequel as if the characters are familiar, even though they are not. There is no sense in this at all. Nevertheless, I love these movies because they're so charmingly silly. This is especially evident in the second part, which feels like some sort of a drama from Hell of a Boss or Santa Barbara, with those awkward dialogues between Venom and Carnage. I mean, have you seen Venom 2? This movie doesn't burden you at all. It's just an hour and a half where you either laugh or cringe, but with a touch of delight. Now, if you want a comic book drama where Eddie Brock is suffering from cancer and only the symbiote can save him, but it turns him into a monster, then this isn't for you. But the cinematic approach has its right to exist. Oh my god, if by the end of the third part I cried like a little girl to this music and flashbacks from 3 Venom films, that says a lot. That 3 Venom films were indeed something bigger than just entertaining nonsense. For me, Venom is actually far from just a simple Marvel character or Spider-Man's enemy. It's something more. My viewers know that I'm kind of a micro-author here. Yeah, I'm something of an artist myself. Now, making my own animated series and generally have plans for my franchises, and many know that artists, animators, and creators of their works are often inspired by something from their childhood that has forever stuck in their minds, and they can't shake it off. For some, it's Harry Potter, Conan the Barbarian, and other works or films. For my persona, many know that I'm inspired by Aku from Samurai Jack. Obviously, black collar, made of some strange matter, came from space, intriguing transformations, and all sorts of abilities. But if you think about it, that description perfectly fits Venom. And in the animations and cartoons that my channel is mainly dedicated to, Venom first appeared in that very Spider-Man from the 90s, which I watched long before Samurai Jack. It was the Spider-Man cartoon and the X-Men from the 90s that made me a fan of superheroes. Overall, it opened the doors to this amazing world filled with magic, science, sorcery, a bunch of characters, and ideas that are simply treasures for any fan of fantasy. Ever since then, I've been looking for him everywhere. In every Spider-Man project that came out, I always waited for that alien black goo that does strange things to people. Notice how Venom is good in almost every animated series he appears in. The reverence for Venom can be seen in nearly every project he is a part of, though in different series his origin story often changes. And let's be real, there are tons and tons of versions of him. It's simple, the concept of a living entity from space that remembers the birth of galaxies and civilizations, something that merges with its host and makes them insanely cool in terms of a design, voice, and the sheer aura of menace and swagger, that's unforgettable. Venom as a character is so memorable that he naturally left an impression on every Spider-Man fan. He became so popular that his character went through a long, challenging journey in the comics, evolving from just another villain for Spider-Man into a standalone superhero. In the King in Black storyline, Eddie Brock, who is almost always linked with Venom, even became the God of Light. He wielded Thor's hammer and Silver Surfer's board, merging them into an axe shaped like Spider-Man as a nod to Parker's significant role in Eddie and Venom's lives. In an epic, over-the-top battle, he defeated Knull, the God of Darkness, and symbiotes. Just that brief description is already mind-blowing, so what else am I personally looking forward to? Remember how X-Men 97 recently came out? It's a direct continuation of the 90s X-Men animated series. Within the continuity of that show, the 90s Spider-Man series is also canon. Those two often crossed over, so those cartoons exist in the same universe. And maybe, just maybe, with this explosive success of X-Men 97, they'll bring up back Spider-Man 90s too. Fans have been begging for that for over 20 years, and maybe then they'll pull that same Venom out for Dormammu's dimension. Ah, yes, but those are just the dreams of a fan of a cosmic goo. Well, back to cinematic versions of Venom. What are they even remembered for? Let's go through the timeline of what Sony has done with our black goo. In short, Sony once again tried to build their cinematic universe using their existing intellectual properties, and Venom was one of them. Despite Sony messing up many things in the past, their idea with Venom actually worked. Even considering that Venom himself, following Marvel's recent trend with solo movies, ended up more comedic than serious or dark. The first Venom movie, the first Venom film. It was a wild ride. Picture this, 2018, and here comes a movie where one of the Marvel's darkest and most insane characters turns out to be almost charming and cute. Now, seriously, Venom in this film sometimes acts like a cat. Everyone expected a serious horror film, but instead got an action comedy about an unlucky journalist, Eddie Brock, sharing his body with an alien parasite. Eddie here is a well-meaning guy with bad luck. He tries to expose a corrupt supercorporation and ends up bonding with an alien specimen, Venom, the symbiote. And they're like an odd couple. One tries to follow the rules, and the other wants to eat people for lunch. Eddie and Venom constantly bicker inside Eddie's head, which again is typical for the comics. They argue, try to coexist, and avoid getting themselves killed. From the outside, it looked very lively and fun. Oh, the she-Venom, well, you get it. Surprisingly, the movie had plenty of dark humor. Venom, who could have just been another villain, someone Eddie Brock wrestles with internally, becomes a quirky anti-hero with both menacing and funny vibes. For example, there's a scene where Venom explains to Eddie that their relationship is like a parasite and the host. Well, what was that? I mean, for viewers, it was a short but amusing shock. They expected a dark action flick and got playful irony. And yet they weren't disappointed. Everyone loved what they saw. Venom in full force is something else. Pure delight for fans of flashy battles. Even the special effects were well done. Venom's design, hulking, black, toothy, with a grin stretching ear to ear, well, if he had ears, perfectly conveys his creepiness while playing into contrasts. He's terrifying, but also like your dumb buddy. Seriously, a dumb buddy. This odd, brutal, but hilariously fun bromance made the film instantly popular. Naturally, they led us to the sequel, Venom, Let There Be Carnage, or simply Carnage. Well, you get it. A gift for everyone who had been waiting to see Carnage on the big screen. A showdown between two iconic symbiotes, vengeful and bloodthirsty. You mean Venom and Carnage? Haven't you watched these cartoons? This was what fans were waiting for since the first film was announced. Tom Hardy returned as Eddie Brock with his chaotic, uncontrollable bond with Venom, and their friendship got even crazier. But the main dish is, of course, Carnage, or Cletus Cassidy, played by Woody Harrelson. Cletus is a full-blown psychopath, a textbook maniac. When he merges with the symbiote, all his madness and insanity amplify 100-fold. It becomes a horrifying nightmare. Where Venom is jokey and well-meaning, Carnage is complete opposite, insane, bloodthirsty, and driven by a desire to destroy everything. He embodies chaos. The film's depiction of Carnage was, well, impressive. Bright red stretched out, constantly pulsing as if fueled by rage or dripping blood. His scenes added darkness and a genuinely chilling effect to the movie. But here where fans take issue. While Carnage design and CGI were solid, his comic book savagery felt toned down. It's like the creators hesitated to show the real Carnage. For example, during his prison escape scene, it seemed like he wasn't allowed to go full throttle, possibly to avoid scaring the broader audience. Seriously? The film's rated 18+, but let's not go overboard with this violence. I mean, his name is Carnage. It's literally Carnage. His name says it all. Maybe how about you show me some massacre? You know what I mean? Yeah? So yeah, the audience got Carnage, but not quite the one they originally wanted to see. Still, the movie didn't end up face down in the mud, and many aspects were well received by the fans. Naturally, this brings us today, just a couple of days after the release of the third film. And what can I say? No spoilers yet, but this is literally the best Venom movie so far. Yes, that's right. If you binge watch the first two films, by the time you get to the end of the third one, you might even shed a tear. Even though it's just a comedic action movie with Venom, the third film doesn't lose any of the character dynamics. It doubles down and tugging at viewers' emotions, especially when you watch Venom and Venom's relationship unfold. The only downside, I think, is that the third film lacks a clear antagonist. Sure, there's a Knull, or however you want to pronounce it, living on the planet Butt-End, somewhere in the outskirts of the universe, sending his xenophages to kill Venom and extract the codex from him. This codex, a special internal feature of the symbiotes, would allow Knull to break free and unleash a massacre of galactic proportions, wiping all of the life. Just like Thanos sat on his stone throne, Knull will continue sitting on his symbiotic toilet for a while. For this point on, I'm not holding back on spoilers, though I probably already slipped earlier. But even so, I don't feel the need to delve deeply into the movie. It's a good, classic conclusion to the franchise, albeit with plenty of hints at potential sequels. There are new symbiotes, and Venom comes across as more heroic than ever. He even sacrifices himself for humanity and Eddie specifically. That's powerful. Even all the shenanigans and the friendship between Eddie and Venom, parting ways with Venom felt incredibly gut-wrenching. He had become like a family over time, which is a rare thing. Even Tony Stark didn't stay dead for long. They're already bringing him back as Dr. Doom. Which, by the way, brings us to the main problem. Both Sony and Marvel/Disney's greed could ruin the potential for one of the best arcs in comics. If they ever adapt it into a movie, it could surpass Infinity War or Endgame. Seriously, I'm talking about adapting the King in Black storyline, where Marvel heroes face off against the new god of the symbiotes. If you're too impatient to wait for Marvel and Sony to come to their senses, I'll leave some links to the King in Black video comic. The thing about King in Black is that it's an ultimate crossover. You got Spider-Man, Venom, the X-Men, a whole bunch of symbiotes, the Avengers, Knull himself, and his army of symbiotic dragons that could destroy entire planets solo, and here there's a whole legion of them. Carnage becomes the symbiote devil, and there are even symbiotic celestials. We're already being teased with the regular celestials in Marvel Comics, and now this? The scale and stakes are massive. What are we even talking about when just Knull's sword, known as All Black Necrosword, the first symbiote he forged in the Void, sparks entire movie events? You saw that sword in Thor: Love and Thunder at the Gore the God Butcher scene. So one weapon tied to Knull triggers plots across multiple films. How on earth will Marvel adapt all of this? After all, Sony's heroes don't belong to Marvel. Let me explain. Millions of years ago, sometime in the 90s, Marvel, unbought by Disney and on the brink of bankruptcy, started selling off the film rights to its heroes to anyone willing to buy. Disney, 20th Century Fox, and a bunch of other companies snagged the rights to Marvel heroes. You remember how 20th Century Fox built up the X-Men franchise, right? Comic book movies took the world by storm, and suddenly we realized most of the Marvel's family of heroes was owned by different companies. Disney, meanwhile, had to play Thanos, traveling across the cinematic universe and buying up other studios to bring Marvel heroes back under one roof. Disney's purchase of 20th Century Fox even raised questions for antitrust regulations in the US. Frankly, I'm not sure if Disney is legally allowed to buy any more companies, and given that Disney is bleeding money due to, well, certain agendas, they likely can't afford to buy Sony. They managed to co-produce Spider-Man movies only because these two greedy corporations miraculously struck a deal to let a character from Marvel's own universe be part of the Avengers. That's how we got 3 Spider-Man films, but Venom and everything else weren't part of that deal. Sony's been trying to build the cinematic universe for 20 years. Remember Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse? This leaves us in the situation where Venom and Knull could only join Marvel if Disney and Sony come to an agreement. Sure, miracles can happen, but we know we're dealing with 2 greedy companies here. The only logical and profitable path would be from them to collaborate and create something truly remarkable. But looking at Marvel's recent cinematic phase, which has been mostly trash, it's clear that they are struggling with a major villain. No focus, no endgame-like boss. It's like playing an RPG with no final raid boss, no atmospheric lead-up to a climactic battle. Knull could be that villain. He's the heavy hitter who could kickstart the King in Black arc. The title of Venom 3 Last Dance even refers one of the lines from the comics when Venom defeats Knull. If the King is Black arc even makes it to the big screen, it could be one of the most epic, atmospheric events in cinematic history, much like the Endgame finale. So why not make it happen? Because Disney and Sony are greedy scumbags. Marvel is suffering without a major villain post-Thanos. Kang the Conqueror was supposed to be it, but not only did they fail to develop him properly, they also shelved him due to scandals involving the actor. But even before that, they botched his introduction, having him lose to ants in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. How are they supposed to hype up the villain who lost to a bunch of ants? Now Disney and Marvel seem desperate, rummaging through their pockets for solutions. They're trying to give us a new big bad like Doctor Doom while banking on nostalgia by casting Robert Downey Jr. in the role. Many see this as derivative and cheap, undermining Iron Man's sacrifice. Knull with his symbiotes could solve all of this. He's not derivative, he's logical, atmospheric, and epic. Knull is immediately presented as a serious and terrifying, not as some comic relief plot device. The fate of one of the best comic arts, which could rake in billions, is literally in Sony's and Disney's hands. But if they don't make the right choice, we might end up with Sony's own Avengers, Morbius, Kraven the Hunter, and Madame Web, all fighting Knull. What a mess that would be. In the end, all we can do is hope for the best. Sometimes even movies you don't expect much from can surprise you, just like Venom. The potential here is nuclear, just like Knull himself. This gives us hope for the future. Even if Disney messes up, I'll just make my own Knull with Black Death and elves or something. Don't be bored. And please don't forget to subscribe and leave as many comments as you can. I'm putting in the effort, but the views aren't going great. Anyway, thanks, and I'll see you in the next one.